They buried Petra Loxley standing upright so the pack could watch her disappear one breath at a time. The execution pit lay between the two oldest roots of the first root tree. Its trunk rose above Rootcourt Hollow like a black tower. Petra's family name had been cut from the bark. The empty space remained. Snow gathered on her gray burial dress while guards shoveled dark soil around her legs. By the time it reached her waist, hundreds of wolves stood silent around the hollow. No one called her innocent. No one had heard her trial in full. Lord Regent Crispin Bale had read the accusation before sunrise. Descent from a treasonous house, concealment of the original succession oath, refusal to surrender forbidden records. There were no records left to surrender, Petra had said. Your parents made the same claim. My parents made no confession. Their silence condemned them. No, your interpretation did. The next shovel struck her ribs. Petra watched the tree. Her mother had taught her that old roots revealed strain before branches showed damage. A root carrying honest weight settled deep. A root forced around buried stone rose toward the surface. The first root tree had 7 raised veins beneath the execution ground. There should have been 6. Royal Alpha Hadrian Morvale entered the hollow as the soil reached Petra's chest. The wolves lowered their heads. He wore black armor beneath a white winter cloak. Even the guards changed their breathing when he approached. Petra remembered him at 15, sitting behind her mother's law table with ink on his fingers, learning the difference between an inherited command and a witnessed oath. Crispin had forbidden those lessons after Hadrian's father died. Hadrian had never returned. Now he stood before the pit carrying the sentence that would finish what his uncle began. Crispin bowed. The condemned has refused the final confession. Hadrian's pale eyes rested on Petra. Did your family conceal an oath beneath this tree? I do not know what they buried. That is not a denial. It is the answer you left me alive long enough to give. A warning passed through Hadrian's wolf. Petra felt it through the soil. The law requires that traitor blood be returned to the first root, he said. The law you read requires it. Crispin stepped forward. Treason always calls lawful judgment incomplete. Petra looked at Hadrian. Ask him to show you the root copy. The hollow quieted. The burial statute is held in the royal archive, Crispin said. Then why is it being enforced beneath a tree that keeps its own law? Hadrian's right hand closed. Beneath his glove, something pale flickered. Petra had seen the royal root mark once when they were children. A silver branching line from his wrist to his thumb. It was not a mating mark, not a private bond, not a promise between children. It was the old sign that a crowned hand could witness law buried beneath the first root. Hadrian kept that hand turned away. Enough. Petra met the command without lowering her head. My father died with his name cut from this tree. My mother died without being permitted to speak beneath it. If you bury me under the same law, do not call our silence a confession afterward. Crispin nodded to the guards. They resumed shoveling. Soil climbed over Petra's shoulders. Cold pressure closed around her chest. Wet earth carried memories of her father cleaning oath stones, and her mother pressing Petra's fingertips into root grooves. Hadrian had not touched a shovel. That did not lessen what he had done. He had allowed his authority to become the final layer of earth. When only Petra's face remained above ground, Crispin opened the burial scroll. Petra Loxley, last blood of the condemned house. You are returned to the pack root until false loyalty is stripped from your name. Petra looked at Hadrian. You were taught better than this. He raised his hand. For one breath. She thought he might stop the burial. Then he lowered it. Complete the judgment. The final soil covered her mouth. Darkness pressed in. Above her, the pack began the closing howl. Petra could not move her arms. The earth held her ribs too tightly for a full breath. Roots touched the back of her dress, cold as old bone. Her fingers found the 7th raised vein. It was not a root. A carved edge lay beneath it, covered in silver bark. Petra pressed her thumb against the buried shape. She did not know what it was, but she knew the shape of a hidden law because her mother had taught her what roots tried to cover. Something sharp opened her skin. One drop of blood entered the groove. The closing howl stopped. Every wolf in Rootcourt Hollow lost the note at once. The soil loosened around Petra's chest. A root moved beneath her feet. Then another. The execution ground split outward. Guards stumbled back as earth lifted. Silver light poured through the cracks from beneath the tree. Hadrian reached for Petra. He moved only after the roots had already done what his hand had refused. They reached her first. Roots rose around her body, drawing soil from her face and shoulders. One curved behind her spine. Two lifted beneath her feet. Others carried her upward in a cradle of silver-veined wood. Petra emerged coughing beneath the winter moon. No crown appeared. No voice named her innocent. The first root tree did not judge guilt. It responded to blood touching a law buried in its soil. The roots raised Petra above the execution platform, then bent toward the carved object rising from the opened grave. An oath tablet wrapped in roots. Across its face, beneath 17 years of earth, one line remained readable. No Alpha may condemn a bloodline whose oath has been buried before its testimony is heard. Hadrian stared at the law beneath Petra's feet. His gloved palm began to bleed. Under the leather, the fading royal root mark answered hers. The tree had not saved Petra. It had interrupted the law being used to kill her. She stood above the broken execution pit in a cradle of silver roots, coughing soil from her lungs. Mud streaked her face. One sleeve had torn at the shoulder where the earth had pressed her against the buried tablet. Blood ran from her thumb into the carved groove below. No one in Root Court Hollow moved. Crispin Bale recovered first. "Do not mistake root movement for judgment," he said. "The tablet has not been verified." Petra lifted her head. "Then verify it." Crispin looked toward Hadrian. "First root law requires a crowned witness. Until the royal root mark answers the carving, this may be an obsolete copy, a planted tablet, or a Loxley device intended to interrupt lawful sentence." The roots beneath Petra remained still. They did not tighten around Crispin. They did not bow to Hadrian. They held the weight already placed upon them. "Roots do not forgive," Petra said. "They hold weight." Hadrian stepped toward the opened grave. "Drop the shovels." The guards obeyed. "No one touches Petra or the tablet." Crispin's expression did not change. "Your Majesty, the condemned remains under burial judgment. The judgment is suspended. Not because he had trusted her. Because the tree had forced the law to stand between his sentence and her grave." Crispin's gaze sharpened. "Suspended is not overturned. I know the difference." Hadrian stopped below Petra. Soil covered the hem of his white cloak. He had reached for her too late. Now he had to reach for the law in front of everyone. He removed his right glove. A murmur passed through the pack. The royal root mark should have shone like a silver branch from wrist to thumb. Instead, most of it had faded to a pale scar. Only 3 thin lines remained, and blood had gathered where the mark met his palm. Petra saw the fear he had hidden beneath leather. Not fear of her. Fear that the tree might no longer recognize him, Crispin said quietly. "The mark has weakened since coronation. That is not unusual under winter strain." "It is not a mating mark," Hadrian said, loud enough for the hollow to hear. "It witnesses law. Nothing more." The words cut off the whispers before they could become a different story. He placed his bleeding palm against the oath tablet. For one breath, nothing happened. Then silver light entered the remaining lines of his mark. The tablet answered with a low vibration that traveled through the roots and into the ground. Frost fell from the first root branches. The carved words brightened one by one. A royal law reader dropped to one knee. "First root authority confirmed." Crispin raised a hand. "Authority confirmed," meaning disputed. Hadrian did not remove his palm. "Read what is visible." The law reader bent over the tablet. "No Alpha may condemn a bloodline whose oath has been buried before its testimony is heard." Only the first line shone. Below it, the rest of the tablet remained dark beneath packed soil and root bark. Petra's chest tightened. "What does the next line say?" "It is not opened." "Why?" The law reader examined the edges. "The root copy is incomplete. The testimony tied to this statute is missing from the tablet." Crispin turned toward the witnesses. "Then the Loxleys buried an unfinished law and activated it through their surviving blood. Concealment does not prove innocence. It may prove design." Petra looked down at him. "If my family meant to manipulate the law, why was our name cut from the tree before our testimony was heard?" "That removal followed your father's treason ruling." "Which testimony established it?" "The Royal Archive contains the record." "Then bring the bark copy." Crispin's gaze sharpened. "The tree is not an archive for every disputed family. It is for every oath sworn beneath it. Hadrian looked toward the scar on the trunk where Loxley had been carved away. Was a bark testimony recorded before the family name was removed? The royal law reader hesitated. The registry states that the testimony was closed. Closed by whom? Petra asked. By Regency authority, Crispin answered before the reader could continue. Your parents refused to speak. My mother was barred from Root Court Hollow. She was under confinement. Then her silence was arranged. The pack shifted. Not toward Petra. Away from certainty. Crispin faced Hadrian. Your Majesty. The proper action is to return the tablet to custody, confine Petra, and convene a sealed review. Public root, law disputes, have started succession wars. Burial also started publicly. Petra said. You did not require a sealed room to kill me. Hadrian's jaw tightened. The execution remains suspended. Petra will not be returned to the pit, Crispin said. Then she must be held under guard. She will be held above ground. Above ground was not mercy. It was only the minimum a living witness was owed. It was not freedom. It was not absolution. But the shovels stayed down. Hadrian withdrew his hand from the tablet. Blood remained in the carving. Petra watched him replace neither glove nor expression. You covered that mark while I was buried alive. I covered it before today. That is not an answer. No. He did not apologize. The honesty was smaller than repair, but cleaner than defense. The first root branches gave a sudden crack. Everyone looked up. The scar where Petra's family name had been cut away began to darken. Silver sap gathered inside the old blade marks, tracing not the missing letters of Loxley, but a line beneath them. The tree did not restore the family name. It opened the place where testimony had been removed. One word appeared, then another. The law reader stepped closer, face drained of color. Petra's mother's unfinished testimony surfaced across the bark in thin silver script. I buried the original oath because Regency hands had already changed the witness beneath the crown. The bark had not named the traitor. It had named the first alteration. Crispin Bale stepped beneath the silver writing before the pack could turn uncertainty into accusation. Regency hands names an office, he said. Not a man. Every order issued during a minority bears Regency authority. Petra remained on the lifted roots, dirt drying across her face and throat. A guard waited at each side of the opened grave. Above ground, as Hadrian had ordered. Still guarded. Still condemned in every record except the law that had interrupted her burial. What is the witness beneath the crown? She asked. The royal law reader looked toward Crispin before answering. Hadrian noticed. Answer her. The law reader bowed. Every alpha crowned beneath first root carries two recognitions. The public oath names the ruling bloodline. The witness root names the person authorized to confirm that the oath was given freely, with the correct succession law present. Not a mate, Petra said. No. A legal witness. The mark on the crowned hand joins that witness line to the root registry. Hadrian's bare palm remained open at his side. 3 silver branches still glowed faintly through the blood. Petra looked from the weakened mark to the scar where her family name had been removed. If the witness line is changed, the crown mark may fade, the law reader said. Not because the alpha loses blood, but because the root no longer carries the same testimony beneath him. A murmur moved through Root Court Hollow. Crispin raised his voice. Marks also fade through winter illness, coronation strain, or prolonged separation from first root. His Majesty has governed from the northern keep for years. Petra looked at Hadrian. Did winter make it answer when you touched the buried tablet? His expression tightened. No. It answered after my blood reached a law your archive did not contain. That establishes contact, Crispin said. Not conspiracy. It establishes that the tree recognized something your records erased. Crispin faced Hadrian. This is precisely why root disputes are reviewed in sealed chambers. Public fragments become public panic before their meaning is established. Procedure buried me, Petra said. And public anger may bury the pack. Hadrian looked toward the wolves gathered around the hollow. Some watched Petra. Others watched his uncovered palm. His authority had always depended upon certainty. Now the tree had placed uncertainty where everyone could see it. Where is the root registry kept? He asked. Below the eastern side of first root, the law reader answered. The chamber opens only to a crowned mark, and the bloodline whose testimony is disputed. Crispin said. Then it cannot be opened tonight. Petra remains under sentence. Her blood has not been restored to lawful standing. The tablet established unheard testimony. Hadrian replied. It suspended execution. It did not restore her standing. Petra's lungs burned whenever she drew breath, but her voice remained steady. Then let me enter as the accused bloodline. The registry was built for disputes, not for people already declared innocent. The law reader lowered his head. She is correct. Crispin's gaze sharpened. Opening the registry may destabilize the succession if the witness line differs from the coronation record. Hadrian looked at him. If it differs, the danger already exists. You would expose the crown to rival challenge because of an unfinished sentence in bark? I buried a woman beneath that unfinished sentence. The admission was not an apology. It did not restore Petra's name or remove the guards, but it made his part impossible to hide behind Crispin's office. The root registry will be opened under public witness, Hadrian said. Crispin stepped closer. Your Majesty. Here. The law reader led them to the eastern trunk while selected pack witnesses followed. 2 guards remained beside Petra until the roots lowered her to the ground. Her knees failed when her feet touched the soil. Hadrian caught her elbow. Petra pulled free before he could steady her. The movement cost her a breath she did not have to spare. You are still holding me under guard, she said. Yes. Then do not make restraint look like tenderness. His hand dropped. He had learned too late that helping a woman stand was not the same as restoring the ground he had taken from beneath her. He ordered a healer to remain nearby but did not command Petra to accept treatment. At the base of the tree, silver bark covered a narrow door without hinges. Hadrian pressed his root mark against its center. Nothing opened. Crispin said softly, Winter strain. Petra knelt beside the seam. Her mother had taught her that root doors open through balanced witness, not royal force. The crown is only half the pressure. She placed her bleeding thumb beneath Hadrian's palm. The marks did not join. They were not a bond. 2 separate lines of silver entered the bark. One from the crowned witness, one from the disputed bloodline. The door opened inward. Cold air rose from beneath first root. Inside, root shelves descended in circles around a stone registry table. Each succession oath had a living strand threaded through its witness tablet. The law reader found Hadrian's coronation year. The public tablet named Crispin Bale as regency witness. The root beneath it had been cut, not broken by age. Cut cleanly, then joined to a younger strand with black binding wax. Crispin said, Emergency witness replacement was lawful during the fever winter. Where is the replacement order? Petra asked. In the Regency archive. Then the original strand should still name who was replaced. The law reader scraped away a narrow edge of black wax. Only a small section of the older root remained. Silver letters surfaced along its grain. The tree gave them no verdict. It gave them a missing witness. Hadrian's mark burned brighter as the law reader read the surviving entry. Original crowned witness, Elspeth Loxley, root oath keeper. Petra stopped breathing. Elspeth Loxley had been her mother. The entry did not say who had cut her away. It proved only that Hadrian's crown had once stood upon a Loxley witness, and Crispin's name had been bound over hers before Hadrian was crowned. The registry had not cleared Petra. It had placed her mother beneath Hadrian's crown. An original witness is not a permanent witness, Crispin said. Emergency replacement was lawful during the fever winter. He stood beside the opened registry table without touching it. The black binding wax joining the younger root to Elspeth Loxley's severed witness line reflected no silver light. Petra remained between 2 guards. Her breathing had steadied, but every full breath still scraped through her ribs. Soil clung beneath her fingernails and inside the torn collar of her burial dress. Then show the replacement order, she said. Crispin did not look away from Hadrian. The fever winter killed 3 law readers and confined half the Eastern Court. Orders were sometimes transferred to the Regency archive for preservation. The royal law reader shook his head. A witness transfer must also remain beside the living root, unless the chamber was contaminated. Then a sealed root slip must record its removal. Hadrian's bare hand tightened. Finite. The law reader examined the circular shelves surrounding the coronation tablet. Each witness transfer should have been stored in a narrow groove beneath the root it altered. Hadrian's groove was covered by a thick ridge of black wax. Petra bent closer. Crispin moved between her and the table. She remains under judgment, and the judgment depends upon what is beneath that wax. She has no authority to handle succession evidence. Petra met Hadrian's eyes. Then order your reader to examine it. I do not need to touch a law to recognize where someone tried to hide its edge. Hadrian nodded to the law reader. Open the groove. Crispin's expression stayed controlled. Removing emergency wax may damage the graft that still supports your crown mark. My mark is already failing. Then preserve what remains. Preservation is not the same as concealment. The law reader heated a narrow bone blade over a silver lamp. When he pressed it against the wax, a bitter resin scent filled the chamber. A thin black curl separated from the root. The law reader held it to the light. This is not coronation wax. Crispin answered immediately. No one claimed it was. Witness grafts require later reinforcement. What year? Hadrian asked. The reader turned the wax fragment. Fine registry lines had been stamped inside it, almost hidden by the black resin. 7 winters after the coronation. Petra looked at Crispin. The fever winter was before Hadrian was crowned. The original substitution occurred during the fever winter, Crispin said. The graft was repaired later. By whose order? The root keepers responsible for maintaining royal continuity. Name them. The archive will. Petra's mouth tightened. Every missing answer lives in an archive you control. Crispin's gaze cooled. Every government maintains records. Your family's habit of distrusting written authority does not make authority fraudulent. My family maintained the root copy that your written authority contradicted. Hadrian placed 2 fingers against the exposed wax. Pain crossed his face before he could hide it. The remaining lines of his root mark flared white. He pulled back, but blood had already opened across his palm. The living root beneath the wax shuddered. Not toward Petra. Not toward Crispin. It recoiled from the graft. Hadrian's mark did not glow like triumph. Petra said quietly. It burned like a wound finally told where it began. Crispin turned to the law reader. Can later repair cause such a response? If the graft carries a witness line the crown no longer recognizes, or if the mark has become unstable. The reader did not disagree. Crispin faced the pack witnesses gathered at the chamber entrance. You see the danger. Every fragment is being interpreted before full examination. A weakened royal mark, an unfinished bark statement, and a disputed graft are not proof of treason. A changed witness does not prove murder, Petra said. Crispin's eyes returned to her. It proves procedure. Procedure buried me. Silence settled over the chamber. Hadrian looked down at the wax-covered groove. What must accompany a lawful witness replacement? The law reader answered carefully. A transfer root slip bearing 3 cuts. The regency authorization, the crowned blood acknowledgement if the heir is of age, and the surrender cut of the original witness. I was 13, Hadrian said. Then only regency authorization and original witness surrender were required. Petra's hands went cold. My mother would have had to consent. Yes. If she refused, the witness could be removed only by open root court hearing. There was no hearing, Petra said. Crispin replied. Elspeth Loxley was confined under treason suspicion. Her legal capacity to remain witness had already been challenged. Challenged is not surrendered. The distinction may be recorded on the missing slip. A replacement has an order, Petra said. A theft has wax. The law reader continued cutting. Layer by layer, the black ridge separated from the registry groove. Beneath it lay a narrow strip of silver bark folded against the stone. A dark seal covered one end. The Regency wolf. Crispin did not move. Hadrian noticed. You knew it was there. I knew a lawful transfer had been made. That was not my question. Crispin's voice remained level. I governed during a winter when heirs died faster than records could be copied. I remember authorizing continuity measures. I do not remember where every root slip was stored. The law reader lifted the strip with bone tongs. Regency authorization is present. Read it. Hadrian ordered. Elspeth Loxley is removed as crowned witness due to confinement, divided loyalty, and risk to succession continuity. Crispin Bale is appointed emergency witness until royal majority. Petra stared at her mother's name. Where is the hearing record? Not listed. And her surrender? The reader turned the slip. 1 cut marked Crispin's regency authority. A second space had been prepared for Elspeth's consent. It remained smooth. No blade had entered it. The root gave them no traitor. It gave them a missing consent. Crispin said, "Emergency authority can supersede surrender when a witness is legally incapacitated. Then the incapacity ruling must be attached," the reader replied. "Search the archive." Hadrian looked at the uncut space where Elsbeth's hand should have answered the transfer. The crown had not stood alone. It had stood on her silence. Petra lifted her soil-streaked face. "My mother did not surrender her lawful standing." The law reader lowered the slip. "No. She was cut away before the law recorded her consent." The black graft trembled beneath Hadrian's bleeding hand. And for the first time, the royal root mark began withdrawing from Crispin's witness line. The first thing Hadrian lost was not his crown. It was the feeling in his right hand. The silver lines beneath his skin contracted toward his wrist, leaving his fingers pale and numb. His wolf struck once against the inside of his ribs, then fell silent. Hadrian gripped the registry table with his left hand. Crispin moved toward him. "Do not touch me." The command stopped his uncle before concern could become possession. Petra remained beside the open transfer slip. 2 guards still stood behind her, but neither looked certain whom they were guarding now. The royal law reader examined Hadrian's palm. "The mark is withdrawing from the substituted witness root." A pack witness at the chamber entrance whispered, "Does that unmake the crown?" Crispin answered before the reader could. "It may. Which is why this chamber must be sealed before rival packs hear an incomplete interpretation." Hadrian looked at the reader. "Does it?" The man swallowed. "A failed witness line can suspend succession authority. It does not automatically remove crowned blood." "Then say that where everyone can hear." The reader turned toward the entrance. "The royal bloodline remains recognized. The witness beneath it is disputed." Crispin's jaw tightened. "Disputed crowns invite armies. So do hidden laws," Petra said. He faced her. "You speak easily of instability because your family no longer has a throne to lose. My family lost the right to speak before we lost anything else." The black graft trembled again. Pain climbed Hadrian's forearm. He hid none of it now. The pack had already seen the weakened mark. Covering it again would only teach them that concealment remained his first instinct. "What restores a rejected witness line?" he asked. The law reader looked toward the deeper shelves. "The original witness may surrender lawfully. A replacement may be confirmed through open hearing. Or the buried testimony may establish that the substitution was void from the beginning," Crispin said. "Elsbeth Loxley is dead. Her testimony is unfinished. The only responsible course is temporary regency review." "Led by whom?" Petra asked. "The council. A council appointed under the witness line now failing." Several witnesses shifted. Crispin's voice cooled. "You are exploiting a constitutional wound while standing under a suspended treason sentence." Petra's knees shook, but she did not lean against the registry table. "I am naming the wound that buried me." Hadrian looked at the guards. "Remove yourselves from her shoulders." They stepped back 1 pace. Petra noticed the exact distance. "You have not released me." "No." "Then do not pretend 1 step is freedom." "I am not pretending." The answer held no softness. Only a ruler beginning to understand that every smaller correction remained visible beside the harm that required it. Crispin placed both hands behind his back. "Your Majesty, if you open a public succession hearing tonight, the northern claimants will say your mark failed because your blood was never accepted." "My blood," answered First Root. "Through her. Through buried law, which her family controlled." Petra turned toward the circular shelves. "My family kept root copies because written archives could be altered, and then concealed one beneath the execution ground, to keep it from hands already changing witnesses. That is still concealment." "It may be," Petra said. "But concealment and treason are not the same act." Hadrian watched her. She did not ask him to trust her. She asked him to distinguish one law from another. That was what her mother had once taught him at a wooden table before Crispin removed him from the lessons. Hadrian faced the law reader. "What procedure hears testimony from a dead witness without turning the tree into a judge?" "The root continuance." Crispin's expression changed for the first time. Only slightly. Petra saw it. "What does it require?" The reader answered, "The disputed bloodline must identify the buried law. The crowned hand must verify each opened clause. Human witnesses interpret the record. First Root reveals only what was physically preserved. No voices? Hadrian asked. No spirits. No judgment. No names beyond those carved at the time. Petra looked toward the chamber door. The tablet beneath the grave opened only its first line. Because the corresponding witness root was still bound under false wax, the reader said. Now that the graft is exposed, another clause may answer. Crispin stepped between Hadrian and the stairs. You cannot continue while your mark is withdrawing. Hadrian met his gaze. Is that law? It is survival. That was not my question. Crispin's silence lasted one breath too long. The law reader lowered his head. No statute forbids continuance. But each verification may weaken the mark further until the rightful witness line is restored. Hadrian looked at his numb hand. If the mark failed completely, his commands could be challenged. Border alphas might refuse levy. The royal guard could divide over succession law. Crispin spoke more quietly. You can protect the kingdom first, and examine the Loxley grievance after. Petra's face changed at the word grievance. My mother's witness was cut away. My father's testimony was erased. I was buried alive under the law that remained. Do not reduce that to a grievance because the truth has become inconvenient to the crown. Hadrian's wolf stirred faintly. Not at her defiance. At the accuracy of it. He turned to the pack witnesses. The root continuance will be held under public witness. Crispin said. You may lose command authority before dawn. Then the pack will know what it cost to uncover the law my crown ignored. It was not absolution, but it was the first choice he made, knowing the price would belong to him. They returned to the broken execution ground. Petra walked without assistance. Each step pulled pain through her ribs, yet she refused the healer's arm. The silver roots lowered the buried tablet onto the soil. Hadrian placed his bleeding palm against its edge. Petra pressed her thumb into the groove her mother had hidden. The marks remained separate. The second clause brightened. The law reader knelt and read. No regency witness may replace a crowned root where that witness's blood stands to inherit through the failure of the royal line. No one spoke. The tablet had not named Crispin guilty. It had named the reason an uncle could never lawfully stand beneath his nephew's crown. The new clause did not remove Crispin from the succession. It made every order he had issued beneath Hadrian's crown harder to defend. Crispin stood before the oath tablet, while the pack waited for shock to become accusation. I did not inherit through Hadrian's failure, he said. I was named only as contingent blood during a minority. The statute bars an active claimant from serving as witness. It does not bar every royal relative. The law reader did not answer immediately. Petra remained beside the tablet, one hand pressed against her ribs. Her face had lost color beneath the dried soil. What made a claimant active, she asked. A declared petition, a blood challenge, or a succession council vote, Crispin replied. Who kept those records? The royal archive. Petra looked at Hadrian. Again. His root mark still burned where the silver lines had withdrawn toward his wrist. Is there a root record? He asked. The law reader nodded reluctantly. Every contingent heir has an inheritance strand in the lower registry. It does not establish guilt. It records only proximity to the crown. Crispin's mouth hardened. This continuance is moving beyond the Loxley sentence. The Loxley sentence was built upon my witness line, Hadrian said. There is no beyond yet. The words did not soften Petra's expression. He had finally understood the scale of the wrong. Understanding did not shorten the years her family had lived beneath it. They returned below first root under selected public witness. The chamber felt colder than before. Silver roots circled the stone registry table, each one carrying a separate weight: crowned blood, sworn law, witness authority, inheritance proximity. Petra stopped beside Hadrian's grafted root. The black wax did not merely hold Crispin's witness strand in place. A thinner root disappeared beneath it and ran downward. Where does that lead? She asked. The law reader knelt. It should lead nowhere. A witness graft confirms testimony. It does not join succession. Petra traced the air above the hidden line without touching it. My mother taught me that false weight always needs a second support. Crispin said. Or the graft was reinforced after the fever winter because the crown was weak. Then the reinforcement should return to the crown root. It may. It does not. Hadrian crouched beside Petra. Pain tightened her breathing, but she did not move away this time. She also did not lean toward him. What do you see? He asked. a line carrying recognition downward. To whom? I do not know yet. Crispin faced the witnesses. She is interpreting root growth as intention. Roots do not have intention, Petra said. People decide where to bind them. The law reader heated the bone blade again. Crispin stepped forward. If you cut a succession strand without council authority, every northern alpha may challenge the result. We are not cutting it, Petra said. We are exposing where it goes. Hadrian looked at the reader. Remove only the wax covering the lower line. The blade entered the black resin. Hadrian's mark flared. His right knee struck the stone. The pack witnesses moved, but Petra reached him first. She caught his shoulder, not to comfort him, but to keep his bare palm from falling against the graft. Do not touch the wax. His breath came through clenched teeth. You were buried an hour ago, and you are about to let the same false line pull you into it. For one brief moment, their faces were close enough for him to see the broken capillaries in her eyes, and the soil still caught at the corner of her mouth. There was no romance in the distance between them. Only two injured people refusing to let the law use another body. Hadrian steadied himself with his left hand. Petra released him. Crispin said, "This proves the mark cannot survive further disturbance." "It proves the graft is connected to him," Petra answered. The wax peeled back. Beneath it, the thin root did not return to Hadrian's crown strand. It descended into the inheritance shelves. The law reader followed it through 3 circles of stone until it entered a narrow tablet marked with Crispin Bale's house seal. No one spoke. Crispin remained composed. "A contingency bridge," he said. "Common during unstable coronations." The reader examined the connection. "A lawful bridge remains dormant unless the crown is declared vacant. Then it is lawful. This one is not dormant." Hadrian rose slowly. "What is it doing?" The reader touched a silver measuring pin to the strand. Light traveled from Hadrian's fading mark, down through the false witness graft, and into Crispin's inheritance root. Petra watched the movement. Every time his mark weakens, that branch gains recognition. Crispin's voice sharpened. "Recognition is not succession." "No," the reader said. "But if the crowned mark fails completely, the registry will already have prepared the nearest acknowledged branch." Hadrian looked at his uncle. "You told me the mark was fading from winter strain. I told you the accepted explanation. Did you know this bridge was active?" "I knew continuity protections had been installed during the fever winter. Your father's death left the kingdom one child away from civil war." Petra turned toward the inheritance tablet. "Who authorized the bridge?" "The Regency Council," Crispin said. "Where's its consent root?" The reader searched beneath the tablet. There was none. Only black wax. The same resin used to cover Elsbeth's missing surrender. Crispin folded his hands behind his back. "A missing root does not invalidate an emergency measure." "It does when the measure benefits the man who witnessed it," Petra said. He looked at her. "You would rather leave the kingdom without an heir?" "I would rather the heir not be manufactured from the king's failure." Hadrian's wolf moved inside him for the first time with enough force to show in his eyes. Not rage. Recognition. His crown had not merely been weakened. Its weakness had been made useful. "Can the bridge be severed?" he asked. The law reader hesitated. "Yes. But if it is cut before the rightful witness line is restored, your mark may fail entirely," Crispin said. "Then the matter is settled. Seal the chamber until a lawful council can review it." Petra looked at the buried path of silver carrying Hadrian's authority into Crispin's branch. "No, the bridge must remain visible. You are still under sentence. And you are still standing beneath a crown that feeds your inheritance." Hadrian faced the witnesses. "The chamber remains open. No wax is replaced. No record leaves first root." Crispin's expression finally cooled into something harder than procedure. "You are risking the throne for an unproven accusation." Hadrian looked at Petra, then at the line draining from his own hand. "No. I am risking it because the throne has been protected from the truth for too long." The law reader lifted a final layer of wax from Crispin's inheritance tablet. A second inscription appeared beneath the bridge. It was not a coronation order. It was a failure instruction. "Upon extinction of the crowned witness mark, recognition shall pass without challenge to the regency blood already bound below." Petra read the clause twice. Then she saw the date. It had been carved 3 days before her mother was arrested. The date did not prove Crispin had ordered Elsbeth's arrest. It proved the Crown's failure had been prepared before she was silenced. Crispin read the failure instruction without changing expression. Succession contingencies are written before they are needed. That is the purpose of continuity law. Petra stood beside the inheritance tablet, one hand braced against the stone. The pain in her ribs had deepened into a steady pressure, but she refused the healer's sleeping draught. What crisis existed 3 days before my mother's arrest? Your father's declining health had already weakened the royal court. Hadrian's father was dead by then. His death did not end the crisis. No, Petra said. It gave someone a reason to prepare for Hadrian's failure. Crispin faced the witnesses. She is turning chronology into motive. Chronology is what motive leaves behind when confession never comes. Hadrian's wolf stirred at the edge of his eyes. Bring the arrest writ. Crispin looked at him. The original is held in the Regency archive. Then open it. The archive lies inside the Winter Keep. Send riders. By dawn, every rival court will know the royal witness line is disputed. They will know soon enough. Crispin lowered his voice. And if the archive contains exactly what I have said, then it will be read. And if it contains language the pack misinterprets? Hadrian looked toward Petra's burial dress, still marked with damp earth. The pack already watched my law nearly kill a woman before hearing her testimony. I will not protect interpretation by hiding the record again. He ordered 3 royal riders to retrieve the sealed arrest writ, the Regency Council roll, and every transfer order tied to Petra Loxley. Until they returned, no one left Root Court Hollow. Crispin did not object. That troubled Petra more than anger would have. The healer bound her ribs while she remained seated beside the exposed registry. Hadrian stood beyond arm's reach. He did not offer his hand again. You should sleep, he said. You should have read the law before burying me. Yes. The answer came without defense. Petra looked at him. He still had not apologized. She was not ready to hear one spoken before action gave it weight. Your mark is still draining, she said. I know. If it fails before the witness line is restored, Crispin's branch gains recognition. I know that too. And you are keeping me under sentence. His jaw tightened. Your execution is suspended. The treason charge remains under review. Then your crown depends on testimony from a woman you still classify as traitor blood. I did not say the position was defensible. No, you only continue it. Hadrian turned toward the guards. Petra Loxley is no longer held as a burial prisoner. Crispin's gaze sharpened. Hadrian continued. She is placed under protected witness restraint until the root continuance is complete. No cell. No chains. No removal from first root without her consent. Petra did not thank him. Protected restraint was still restraint, but it changed who bore responsibility if she disappeared. The riders returned shortly before dawn. The arrest writ came inside a black cedar case, sealed with the Regency wolf. The law reader checked the wax before opening it. Original seal, he said. Crispin inclined his head. The first page named Petra Loxley a threat to succession continuity. The second authorized confinement. The third ordered seizure of all Loxley root copies, private oath records, and witness tools. Petra read the language twice. There is no treason finding, Crispin answered. The writ opened an investigation. It punished her before the investigation began. It confined a witness whose divided loyalty endangered a child king. What divided loyalty? Her husband's refusal to surrender the old oath. Petra looked up. My father refused because the replacement transfer lacked my mother's consent. That is your interpretation. It is the sequence. The council roll listed 5 Regency members. 3 had marked approval. 1 had abstained. 1 line had been scraped away. Hadrian pointed to it. Who is removed? The law reader tilted the parchment beneath silver light. Master Oren Vale, keeper of succession records, Crispin said. He died during the fever winter. Before or after the vote? Petra asked. The reader checked the date. 2 days after. And the seized Loxley records? The archive inventory listed them as destroyed by contamination. Petra's mother had taught her to recognize official phrases designed to close a question without answering it. Contamination by what? No cause recorded, the reader said. Crispin folded his hands. Fever chambers burned clothing, ledgers, and bedding. Preservation was not always possible. Root copies do not carry fever, Petra said. No. But the people handling them did. Petra turned the arrest writ over. A shallow pressure mark ran beneath the Regency seal. Not writing. A cutting guide. Her breath caught. This parchment was laid over a transfer slip. The law reader examined it. She is correct. The blade guide matches the missing consent space. Hadrian's mark burned. Petra traced the indentation without touching it. Her mother's surrender cut had been prepared on the same table where the arrest order was sealed. But the cut had never been made. Crispin said, "Preparation does not prove coercion." "No," Petra replied. "It proves they expected her consent before they arrested her." The law reader unfolded the final page. A smaller note had been stitched inside the spine, hidden beneath the council binding, not written in Elsbeth's hand. A clerk's notation. Witness refused surrender. Confine until bloodline records are recovered. If oath remains missing, classify concealment as treason. The chamber went still. Petra read it aloud once more. Her family had not been accused because treason was proven. Treason had been assigned because Elsbeth would not surrender the witness line and the original oath could not be found. Hadrian looked at Crispin. "You buried her family under a charge created after they refused you." Crispin's voice remained level. "I enforced continuity when a witness withheld law from the crown." Petra lifted her face. "My mother did not hide the oath from the crown." The exposed root beneath Hadrian's hand gave a single silver pulse. She hid it from the branch waiting beneath it. The clerk's note did not prove that the Loxleys had betrayed the crown. It proved the accusation had been built after Elsbeth refused to surrender what stood beneath it. Crispin Bale remained beside the opened arrest writ. Emergency law permitted concealment to become treason when hidden records endangered succession. Petra looked at the unsigned consent space impressed beneath the Regency seal. "You created the danger by binding your inheritance to Hadrian's failing mark. That bridge protected the pack from a vacant throne. It protected your branch from having to challenge for one." Crispin's expression stayed composed. "An orderly transfer is not theft merely because you dislike its beneficiary." Hadrian's right hand had gone nearly white. Only one silver line remained between his wrist and thumb. "What did Elsbeth refuse to surrender?" he asked. "The original oath," Crispin answered. "The same oath her family concealed from the crown." Petra turned toward the first root trunk above them. "My mother said a law could be hidden from hands without being hidden from the crown." Hadrian looked at her. "What does that mean?" "She never taught me the full phrase. Only that first root recognizes position as well as blood. An oath buried where the crowned root can reach, it remains beneath the crown, even if no courtier can remove it." Crispin said. "Convenient doctrine from a family charged with concealment." Petra ignored him. The execution pit was opened between the two oldest roots. The buried tablet lay against a seventh raised line that should not have existed. The law reader straightened. "A protected oath channel. Can it hold the original succession oath?" Hadrian asked. "It can hold a root copy too dangerous for ordinary archives." Crispin stepped toward the chamber stairs. "Opening a protected channel requires full royal recognition. His mark no longer has the strength." Hadrian examined the final silver branch in his palm. "If I use it?" The reader hesitated. "The mark may withdraw completely. And my command? Royal blood remains. But until a lawful witness root is restored, Council Alphas may refuse crown orders." Crispin's voice softened. "You have already exposed enough to begin review. Preserve the throne. Let the council recover the oath after succession authority is stabilized." Petra's eyes remained on Hadrian. She did not ask him to risk the crown for her. That would have made his choice another debt placed upon her body. Instead, she said, "If the original oath is still beneath first root, it has survived every year your archive called my family traitors." Hadrian closed his hand. "The channel opens tonight." Crispin's restraint tightened. "You may cease to rule the moment you touch it. Then whatever remains of my rule will not be spent protecting the record that weakened it." They returned to the execution ground beneath a sky paling toward dawn. The pack had not dispersed. Wolves stood around the broken pit in silent rings, watching Petra walk back to the place where they had seen her buried. The roots no longer carried her. She crossed the ground on her own. Her body protested every step, but she refused to let the pit become the final shape in which the pack remembered her. Petra knelt beside the seventh raised line. Her mother's lessons returned in fragments. Never cut where bark is smooth. Never force a root that carries equal pressure. Never mistake a protective bend for natural growth. She cleared soil from the silver-veined ridge. 3 shallow grooves appeared beneath it. Witness positions, she said. Crowned hand. Root oath keeper. Pack witness. The law reader nodded. The protected channel requires all 3. Crispin looked toward the gathered wolves. No pack witness has been selected. Petra studied the grooves. The 3rd is not a person's name. It is public presence. The reader touched the outer groove. She is right. The channel was designed before closed succession courts. The witnessing pack completes the pressure. Hadrian knelt opposite Petra. His uncovered palm hovered above the first groove. You understand what happens if the mark fails? Yes. You may lose the right to command the guards holding me. His eyes met hers. That right should never have depended on a hidden witness. It was not an apology, but it was the first time he spoke of his authority as something that could be unworthy of preservation. Petra placed her scarred thumb against the second groove. Hadrian pressed his palm into the first. The final silver line in his mark ignited. Pain drove through his arm. His wolf rose inside him with a broken howl that every shifted wolf in the hollow answered. The 3rd groove filled with pale light from the surrounding pack. The 7th root opened. Not violently. Its silver bark separated along an ancient seam, revealing a narrow hollow protected by layers of dark wool, beeswax, and carved bone. Inside lay a rolled sheet of living bark bound with a faded Loxley cord. Crispin said, "Do not remove it. A protected oath can fracture when exposed." Petra examined the wrapping. The wax is intact. The law reader lowered himself beside her. Then no one has opened it since it was sealed. Hadrian's mark went dark. The last silver branch withdrew beneath his skin. Across the hollow, several royal guards shifted their weight as the legal force of his command loosened. Crispin noticed. "So it is done," he said. "The crown now stands without a recognized witness. By continuity law, temporary authority passes to the nearest prepared branch." The inheritance bridge beneath first root pulsed once. Petra looked toward the guards. "Will you let the man who benefits from the altered line decide whether the original oath is read?" No one answered. Hadrian rose without the visible root mark that had confirmed every command since his coronation. He did not reach for his sword. "The oath will be read," he said. Crispin faced the pack. "That is no longer a binding royal order." Petra lifted the sealed bark roll. "No." Her voice carried across Rootcord Hollow. "It is a demand from the bloodline you condemned before hearing its testimony." One by one, the wolves nearest the pit lowered their heads, not to Petra as queen, to the unopened law in her hands. The law reader broke the outer beeswax under public witness. The first preserved line appeared across the living bark. "The Loxley root oath shall conceal this succession law only if a regency branch attempts to inherit through an altered crowned witness." The final words remained folded beneath the cord, and the cord bore Hadrian's father's unbroken seal. The broken root mark had taken Hadrian's command from the law. It had not taken his responsibility from the pack. Crispin Bale stepped into the silence left by the opened oath. "Continuity authority now passes to the nearest prepared branch," he said. "Until the crown receives a lawful witness, I hold temporary command." Several royal guards looked toward Hadrian. Others turned toward Crispin. The division moved through Rootcourt Hollow without a blade being drawn. Petra held the living bark roll against her chest. The Loxley cord remained looped around its lower half, preserving whatever words still lay beneath Hadrian's father's seal. Crispin extended one hand. "The oath must be transferred to Regency custody." "No," Petra said. "You have no recognized standing beyond protected witness restraint. And you have a succession bridge tied to the failure of the crown you claim to protect. That bridge is precisely why authority does not collapse into war." Hadrian moved between them. Crispin's gaze settled on him. "You cannot issue a binding order." "I know." "Then stand aside." Hadrian did not. "I buried her beneath a law I had not fully read. I will not let another unfinished procedure decide what happens to that oath." Crispin faced the guards. "Take the bark." No one moved at first. Then Captain Wulfric Dane, commander of the Royal Guard, stepped forward. Hadrian did not reach for his sword. Petra watched him closely. Without the root mark, force would have made him look like a deposed ruler defending personal power. Restraint cost him more. Wulfric stopped before Petra. Under continuity law, I must obey the recognized branch. Petra lifted the bark. Under first root law, does a disputed beneficiary control evidence that determines whether his authority is lawful? The captain looked toward the law reader. The old man answered carefully. No statute permits a claimant to remove succession evidence from public witness while his own recognition is under examination. Crispin said, I am not removing it from examination. I am placing it under protection. You placed my mother under protection too, Petra replied, then called her silence treason. A low sound moved through the wolves surrounding the hollow. Not approval, memory. They had heard the same word used before burial. Crispin's voice remained level. The pack is tired, frightened, and vulnerable to suggestion. Law exists to prevent grief from becoming judgment. Then let law speak in full, Hadrian said. Crispin looked at the remaining cord. The seal belongs to your father. Breaking it without royal authority may invalidate the oath. The law reader knelt beside the bark. The outer wax was opened under public witness. The inner seal may be broken only by the crowned blood named upon it. Hadrian's hand no longer carried silver. Will the seal answer blood without the mark? It may recognize lineage even where witness authority has failed. Crispin stepped closer. And if it does not? Then the oath remains closed. Hadrian held out his right hand. The palm was pale except for the cuts where the vanished mark had bled. Petra did not place the bark into it. You are no longer asking as king. No. Why are you asking? Because my father sealed the law your mother died protecting. That is history. And because I gave the order that put you in the ground. That is guilt. Yes. The word remained between them. Hadrian did not turn it into apology. He did not ask Petra to make it easier for him. I am asking as the blood named on the seal, he said. Nothing more. Petra studied his face, then placed the cord beneath his hand. His blood touched the old royal wax. The seal opened. No silver fire rose. No wolf bowed. The wax simply split along a cut made years before by Hadrian's father. The law reader unfolded the next section. The preserved bark contained 3 clauses. The first required a root oath keeper to conceal the succession law if a regency branch attempted to inherit through an altered crowned witness. The second required that the hidden oath remain beneath first root until the crowned heir reached majority beyond regency control. The third barred any beneficiary of the altered witness line from judging the family that concealed it. Petra looked at Crispin. You presided over my father's treason review. I did not issue the final judgment. You controlled the council that did. Control is not authorship. Hadrian's jaw tightened. You also approved Petra's burial. As temporary continuity authority acting under the surviving statute. The oath says a beneficiary could not judge the concealing bloodline. It says that only if the concealment conditions were lawfully triggered. Petra pointed to Hadrian's father's seal. He believed they were. A dead king's precaution is not proof that every later regency act was corrupt. Crispin's argument was narrow, but it was not empty. The oath established why the Loxleys had hidden the law. It did not establish who had ordered every false record, who had cut Elsbeth's witness route, or who had ensured Petra's family would never be heard. The law reader examined the final folded edge. There is an attached petition. Crispin's expression did not change. Hadrian saw the stillness. Read it. The petition had been written before Elsbeth's arrest. It requested emergency replacement of the crowned witness, creation of a continuity bridge, and authority to classify concealment as treason if the Petra's fingers tightened around the bark. Who filed it? The law reader turned the sheet toward the dawn light. The signature line had been scraped, but the rude impression beneath it remained. A witness seal did not preserve ink. It preserved pressure. The reader pressed silver dust into the indentation. A wolf crest appeared. The Regency wolf. Beneath it, the petitioner's title emerged. Maternal guardian to the crowned heir, Crispin said. That title belonged to the office. The reader continued. The final line named the petitioner whose blood would receive the continuity bridge. Crispin Bale. The pack did not kneel. It turned to look at him, and for the first time, Crispin stood beneath public witness without controlling what would be read next. Crispin did not reach for the petition. He reached for continuity law. The petitioner is named, he said. But the petition was lawful when filed. Hadrian was a child. The crown required protection from extinction. Petra stood beside the opened oath while dawn spread through Rootcourt Hollow. You requested authority to judge the family whose oath prevented your branch from inheriting. I requested stability. You tied stability to the failure of his mark. Crispin faced the guard captain. Continuity authority remains mine until a lawful crowned witness is restored. Secure the registry. Remove Petra from the tree. Captain Wulfric did not draw his sword. He looked toward the law reader. Does temporary authority survive where the named beneficiary filed the altered witness petition? The reader held the living bark beneath the morning light. Not without independent counsel confirmation. There was no confirmation, Petra said. Crispin's voice sharpened. The Regency Council confirmed every emergency measure. 3 members approved. Hadrian replied. 1 abstained. 1 name was scraped away 2 days before his death. That is suspicion, not law. No, Petra said. The law is here. She placed the original oath beside the transfer slip, the arrest writ, and the failure instruction. 1 document showed that Elspeth Loxley had been Hadrian's first crowned witness. Another showed that she had never surrendered that standing. The arrest writ showed that she was confined before treason was established. The clerk's note showed that concealment became treason only after she refused the transfer. The failure instruction showed that Crispin's branch would inherit when Hadrian's mark died. The petition showed who had requested the bridge. No single record named murder. Together, they showed a succession system built to profit from a silenced witness. Crispin looked at the gathered wolves. You would let fragments dismantle a government that held the packs together through famine, fever, and border war? Petra answered before Hadrian could. A government does not become lawful because people survived beneath it. And you would replace it with what? Root keepers no one elected? Buried laws only your blood can open? No. She turned toward the pack. No bloodline should control the law alone. Not mine, not his. The words stopped the first whisper of reverence before it could become another kind of submission. Petra was a root oath heir. That did not make her queen. It made her capable of finding laws others had tried to place beyond witness. Hadrian stepped away from the royal banner. My command authority is disputed, he said. So I will not use it to decide this. Crispin stared at him. You would surrender the crown to a frightened gathering? I will submit it to the procedure you denied her family. Hadrian removed the silver circlet from his head. He placed it on the stone beside the original oath. The movement passed through the pack more deeply than any command. Until a lawful witness line is restored, he said. I claim no emergency authority beyond defense of life. Captain Wulfric, hold every succession officer named in these records under public restraint, including Lord Crispin Bale. Crispin gave a cold smile. You have just admitted you cannot issue that order. Wulfric looked at the circlet, then at the petition bearing Crispin's inheritance claim. I am not obeying a crown order. He motioned to the guards. I am preserving disputed parties for open council review. The guards moved toward Crispin. They did not drag him. They removed the Regency seal from his shoulder and placed him within the witness ring. Crispin remained upright. You have not proved treason. Petra met his gaze. No. You will receive the hearing my family was denied. For the first time, he had no answer that could close the record. The law reader opened the final portion of Elsbeth's testimony under pack witness. Only 3 preserved lines remained. I did not hide the oath to weaken the crowned child. I hid it because the branch beneath him had begun feeding upon his failure. Let my blood be condemned only after the crown hears why I refused. The testimony ended there. No ghost spoke. No root named an executioner. But the original oath established that the Loxleys' concealment had been a lawful protection against a compromised succession bridge. The treason judgment against Petra's family could no longer stand. Hadrian looked toward the scar where the Loxley name had been cut from first root. Restore it. Petra stopped him. Not by royal favor. He understood. The law reader summoned the surviving oath judges, the village witnesses, and 3 pack representatives who had not served under the Regency Council. Together they voided the concealment charge, suspended the old treason ruling, and opened separate inquiries into the deaths of Petra's parents, the altered registry, and the destroyed records. Only then did the carver approach the tree. The name Loxley returned to the bark beneath public witness, not above Morvale. Beside it, Hadrian's crown still lacked a lawful witness. The reader explained that Elsbeth's standing could pass to her heir only through free consent. Every face turned toward Petra. She looked at Hadrian. You buried me while wearing that crown. Yes. If I witness it, I will not serve at your pleasure. You should not. I will hold authority to inspect every royal oath, succession transfer, and treason proceeding. Yes. The root oath office will answer to public law, not your household. Yes. And if your command violates buried law, I will speak before the pack. Hadrian lifted the circlet but did not place it on his head. Then the crown may finally have a witness instead of an ornament. Petra pressed her thumb into the lawful transfer groove. Hadrian placed his palm beside it. The marks remained separate. They were not a mate bond. Silver returned to his hand only after the pack witnesses completed the final pressure. The crown recognized law again. Weeks later, Petra crossed Root Court Hollow beneath the restored Loxley name. No guards followed her. Hadrian waited beside the first root tree without armor or crown. I cannot ask you to forget the grave, he said. No. I cannot ask you to trust what I have not yet repaired. No. He accepted both answers. May I walk with you while I continue? Petra studied the man who had once lowered his hand and completed her sentence. Now he stood without command, offering no promise she had to carry for him. One path, she said. No titles. Hadrian fell into step beside her. Their hands did not touch. But when the first root branches moved above them, neither mistook the sound for judgment. It was only weight settling where it finally belonged.